Okay. I'm a visual artist. I'm Danish. I'm going to speak in English. But I do understand Swedish if you want to ask questions and have comments in Swedish. I grew up with Swedish television. I have 40 minutes. I'm going to spend 35 minutes on telling about my 20 years plus art practice. So I'm going to take one artwork from some 20 years ago, one from 10 years ago, and one a year ago, just to have some different examples. So it's going to be like a tour de force of 3 projects. So the first I'm going to talk about is one of my initial projects I did in Copenhagen. I was invited to a public art project, and I heard about this issue of injection rooms for drug addicts where they take their drugs, and I decided to make one. So you would have a lot of these situations where you would see the drug addicts take their drugs, like in this place, just sitting there with needles, syringes, not very hygienic. Or in places like this is like a church, which is actually a project I'm going to talk about in the end. This church and this square, but you can see people are peeing on the floor, and people have then been sitting there for 15 years taking drugs, called Maria Church in Copenhagen. At that point in time, there were like some policemen said it might be the place in Europe where there's most drugs sold at this particular square. So what I did was that I made a one-to-one model. It wasn't a model, it was an actual functioning injection room for drug addicts as an art project. And it was made in the bunker. It's a protection room, it's called in Danish. So it was a room for protecting us from the nuclear bombs from the Russians or the Soviet Unions back in the days. It was built in the 50s. We didn't really need them because, but we needed protection for drug addicts to take their drugs. So I called the project Protection Room for Drug Addicts or drug users. And the idea was that I don't know if you know about, now they are everywhere, but at that time it wasn't there. And so it's a place where you go and take your drugs so you don't get infections, and you don't get HIV and hepatitis, and you don't die from overdoses, because there are nurses there and they know how to do it. So that's it. I mean, and you couldn't do that. It was not legal to make injection rooms. So I wanted to investigate if it was a good idea. So that was the project. I didn't have, at least that's what I said, what I communicated. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. Let's try it out. Let's see how it works. So I did the injection room. It was down in the bunker, down in the protection room. There are flowers around. It's my mother's idea. And it had some opening hours. I'm trying to... Oh, here you go. And there were nurses there, volunteers, and you had all this equipment that you needed. Especially if you see the black thing, it's called a Rubens balloon. I don't know what it's called in Swedish or English, but it's if you need to give mouth to mouth, you can use the balloon and put on. Because if someone gets an overdose, I mean, you can put as much drug into you as you want. I mean, you don't die from putting a lot of drugs into your body. You die because at some point the brain gets so bedøvet, that your brain stops telling you to breathe. And that's why you need the balloon or mouth to mouth. So you just give them air, and then they won't die. So now you know how to save a person from an overdose. You just give them air, mouth to mouth, and then you call 911 or 112, whatever it is in your country, and they come and they give you some antidote, and then you are up and running again. But because of that, because there wasn't this system established and there wasn't this injection room in Denmark, we had around 300 people dying every year from overdoses in a street or in a cellar or whatever. 300 lives just wasted because there wasn't that opportunity. So I designed 3 different spaces. I won't go too much into that. Different, if you need to inject in the neck or in the arm or here or in the foot or whatever. So there are different injection rooms, 3 different situations or stations for injecting. And then I wanted to activate the politicians, the decision makers. So how do you do that? You use the press. And this project was a very small art project. We had to finance it ourselves, and I collected money from all the businesses around the square because they knew about the problem. So it was quite easy in a way to fundraise. I think I fundraised 25,000 Danish kroner, which was a lot at that time for that project. No salary, of course, only for materials, because it was in my early days, and as an artist you often run into these situations where you don't earn money on your projects. Anyway, it got around 30 newspaper articles, 8 times on television. I was on television, and 6 times on the radio. And that was totally enormous. I mean, it was like a Monet exhibition at the National Gallery kind of explanation. So, really a surprise, but really fruitful. So I also connected with a politician from the Social Democrats, and she made a law proposal based on our project, and I got to read it through because I become an expert on injection rooms, and so I made corrections to the law proposal, and it went into Parliament, and and it was rejected, 60 against and 44 for. But 10 years after, the Social Democrats got into government. They were in opposition when we did the project, but 10 years after they got into government, and they passed a bill, and this is the first injection room in Denmark, legal injection room. So what I got from this, thank you. So what I got from this project was the idea that I could use my art to spark a different kind of conversation, because you had the little conversation and debate about injection rooms that has been going on for many years before I came into the picture. But it was, written and oral language that were used, but by using the art language, a physical space, an aesthetic space, a tactile space, a space you could visit where your body could be, you can go in with your body and experience how that space would be. And you would see, okay, it's a space, and some people can sit in different places, what's the big deal? So this whole scary image of this injection room, very dangerous thing, was certainly become something else by using a visual language. So that project was really a game changer for me in seeing how I could use art to step into debates, and how I could influence debates and situations in our society. Okay, now I jumped some 14 years to 13 years. I was part of an art exhibition, and they also in a kunsthal, and they also wanted me to do a public art project. So I went down to some beer drinkers in a square in Copenhagen, and there was this situation that you had this square called Enghave Square, Enghave, which was very nice. There were cafes and skateboard ramps and football courts, and there was a fountain, and you could sit on benches and drink your own beer or pizzas or whatever. So it was a very nice square, and you would have this situation like this where you had some pensioners and a man sitting there, and then you would have like 20 or 30 or sometimes 50 beer drinkers, alcoholics, sitting on the end of the bench, and they have been there for many years. But you had this situation where you had these beer drinkers, whatever we call them, in the public space. And so at some point they wanted to build a metro station at this square, and all this construction site began, and you had, before the construction started, you had all these public hearings. The metro company and the municipality, they questioned lots of people and talked to them about their needs and what public hearings is about. But they never talked to the beer drinkers. So the people that used the square the most, who were there all year round, a lot of hours, they were never invited. There were never any community hearing meetings that were applicable to their needs, or how they could be met, how they could be questioned, interviewed, whatever. So they were just like, kicked in the bum. And so the metro company who was building it didn't take care of them. The municipality who had ordered the metro didn't take care of them, and the social workers in the municipality who had them as clients didn't take care of them in terms of this situation. And, that's not my problem. But as an artist, I thought it could be really interesting to see if I could do it in a different way. How can we do something about this in a different way? So that was the project. So I started to talk to them. So I just want to tell a little story from the time, because the first time I should visit them, I was sitting in a cafe called Rico's Cafe Bar, just around the corner from the square. And I was sitting there, so now I'm going to go and talk to them. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not good at doing this in the afternoon. It was afternoon. I was like, maybe I should do it in the morning. Maybe it's not my day today. And I was like really nervous about going there. But in the end, my body kind of dragged me over there with my head a little bit after. And I started, hello, do you remember me? Because I've been there a year before doing some research for a report. I won't talk about that. But and I still remember me, and no. So I was like, okay, anyway, let's talk about your situation now. And I'm telling this because I think a lot of, user involvement with groups like this, you have a concept, an idea that you want to do it. It's written into all your strategies. You want to do it, but in the end, when you have to go and talk to them, it's really difficult. And I think that's one of the barriers for not including marginalized people, or whatever we call them, into urban planning. That it's just too difficult to talk to them personally. So anyway, I managed, and I wasn't killed or whatever. I was well received and was really happy. So we started, and when I say we now, because at that point I invited some architects to participate in the project called Spectrum Architects, and we have a local council in Denmark. So Copenhagen municipality is split up in, I think, 8 different local councils. So I invited them as well, Vesterbro Council, to come and participate in the project. And they also had some financing, which was really nice. I also had some art money for the project. And then we did a lot of different encounters with the users. So here is one of the things we did. We did site visits because we wanted to find a new place for them. And we had, me and Thomas and the architects, Thomas from the local council, we had some ideas. They could be there and there and there. And when we came to talk to them about it, they said, no, we can't be there. And these 2 places, that's someone else's hash district. It's not, we cannot, some of them, 1 or 2 of them were selling hash to the other users and some other people, and they were not allowed to sell hash in these 2 places because there was someone else's. We didn't know that. Then we suggested another place, but that was too far away from the kiosk where they bought their cheap beers. And then we suggested a 4th place, and then no, we have been there before many years ago, but the citizens, the residents there made a petition, sent it to the municipality, and we were thrown away. So of course we don't want to go back there. So our knowledge of places was just not good enough. So they suggested this place, which was a dog walker's small strip, just at the end of the park, or the square. I never seen it before. I'd lived at Vesterbro many years, but I didn't have a dog. I never saw it. So they suggested this place, and for many reasons, but one of it was green. It was far away from the residents, or at least with some distance to the residents, so they wouldn't disturb them. That was something they really cared about. Yeah. So, and then we made a workshop with them, because before that meeting we had another meeting where we talked to them, what kind of facilities do we need? So they need a toilet, seating, shedding, fountains, bonfire, whatever. So we found lots of reference photos. That's how architects do it, which is really nice. So we found 10 different photos of bonfires and 10 different photos of sheds, and also included different architectural styles, because we didn't want it be our style and taste that decided what it should look like. So we wanted them to come up with a brief for us to what the style should be. So anyway, we had around 120 photos. We went through, discussed them, and I said, "Oh, that's very nice, but it's never gonna hold here. It's too weak, or this is really ugly. Something we thought was really nice, and so forth." So we came from 120 images down to 40 images, which was our brief to how to build this space. So we had a workshop for an hour and a half with these guys. Torben, E.T., Michael, Kai, Vibeke, the watchmaker, he was called. He's out there. And who says you can't have a workshop for an hour and a half with alcoholics, or whatever we call them? At that point, I had the idea, I got the idea, or the revelation that, they are super users of the public space. Like Lisbeth Salander, who's a super user on a computer. They are super users on the public space. You can't find anybody of us who's maybe in the urban planning practice, in any municipality, any architectural company, any anthropologist who has spent that many hours and seen so many things in public spaces, and specifically, of course, this public space as they had. So for me, I saw this role as being like you could say, extractor or translator or bridging between the knowledge, the kind of, silent knowledge that they had, and trying to extract it and translate it into the project, into the solution. And I think that's one of the roles that I have seen can be important in these processes for us as artists or anybody else. I also found out in this process that normally when you have urban development projects and processes, you have these, you have the architect and the planner from the municipality, whatever, and some engineers who are working on a project maybe for half a year to build a new square, for instance, and then they invite to a public meeting with the residents and say, what do you want, and so on. And then they have to be urban planners and architects for an hour and a half, and they get some post-its, and what do you want? We want swings and carousels and basketball courts and what else? And they write all these 251 post-its with things they want, and the architects get them in a bag, and it's like, when they have to start working, it's like, I don't know, we can't have 250 ideas into this project, maybe 10 or whatever. So in the end, I mean, this is kind of, I'm just trying to, so in the end, they kind of decide themselves where to go, which directions to go. And so I didn't know. I mean, I've seen these kind of hearings. I've been part of them as a resident where I lived. But now in this project, I saw that actually, what came out of it was that because I didn't know how to do this, I just had to be present in the situation, use my intelligence and my presence to an engagement with the people to see what to do. And I saw that it was necessary to, and this is a term I use, to qualify the participants or qualify the users to be part of the process. You cannot just invite someone to be architects for an hour and a half. We are not architects. I mean, residents are not architects. So by having this process with many encounters, many meetings, over time we qualified the users. And in the end, when we had something that we wanted to discuss, they knew, what the municipality had said. They knew what the budget was. They knew what the residents had said, and so forth. So they had lots of inputs and understanding on where we were in the process. We also had a more normal citizen hearing meeting. And we also had a test of the site. I mean, they came down to test it. We got some old benches and a toilet. And they tested it out, where is the sun, and they complained that people could walk by and take pictures of them with their mobile phones, and they didn't like that, and so forth. So there were new needs that came up. So also this concept of time, spending time on a project, and being thorough. I mean, now you got the key to all the success I have in all the projects I've done. I mean, that if you spend time on it, then the quality will come. And you can do that sometimes as an artist. You have that opportunity because you're not that well paid, and you accept it, unfortunately. So you work a lot of hours, put a lot of hours in. We just heard these two nice people here had 140 Swedish kroner for 3 months' work, including materials. I mean, you should have had. You should have had maybe 40,000 a month with your education and qualification each for 3 months. So that's a different figure. That's how it is. But so anyway, no, won't go into that. Anyway, so we began to the architects make drawings. At that point they made some drawings. They were really good at coming and listening, and then they went home to the architect's office, and then they made finished drawings, and they came down and presented it, and I was like, doesn't really work. I mean, if someone sees a finished drawing, which is really nice, it's like, what can I add? I mean, so we kind of discussed it. I said, can we do it in a different way? So we invented this method that instead of them finishing the drawings and then getting comments and then changing it, instead they should only, in their office, make like 40% of the work. And then they should come half unprepared, like this, down to the users, the customers, and say, okay, we are here now, but we don't really know where to put this or how to do with that. So it's angst-provoking for an architect, for anybody, that you haven't done your work, you haven't done your homework. But I think that open-ended process was much more fruitful. So we came down there, and we said, and then this super user came up again because they had inputs, they had ideas to how to do it. And then they could go home and finish the drawings from that and take up a new subject and do 40% of the work at home and go down again and talk to them again. And we had situations where we had asked the municipality for, at one point, they wanted a urinal. They had some of these urinal, electricity, bonfire, fountain, whatever. They had different needs, and the municipality who had to give permission to these things just said, no, you can't have it. Even though we are paying for it ourselves with our own money and we are building it ourselves. But it had to do with maintenance, I think. So instead of us, the so-called resourceful people, me, Thomas, and the architects, Johan and Sophie, this is Sophie, instead of us deciding it, we went down to talk to them about it. I mean, these resource weak persons, these bums, these alcoholics, whatever we can call them, we went down to talk to them about it, just openly. And then they said, they discussed among themselves, we can't get all of this. Okay, and they said, okay, if we don't get a urinal, we're going to piss in the bushes, and it will stink. We don't mind, we are drunk, we're used to it, doesn't matter. But everybody else won't come then, it will be disgusting. And we had to find the values of the place. We kind of colonized a dog walker's park and a public park, so of course it should be publicly accessible, they thought. So they wanted everybody to be able to come. And if it stinks like that, nobody else will come. And it will be gross. So with these arguments, we went back to the municipality, and after a long discussion, they said, okay, you can build a urinal. We can see it's a good idea. So we got that in the end. So again, this thing about, I think it pushed some barriers for me between resourceful and resource weak. Who has the resources to comment on what? And from that project, I learned that when I go into projects, I come strategically unprepared, and I call it strategically unprepared because it sounds better, when you talk to municipalities or planners or whatever. But the idea is that instead of me or us having ideas ourselves, coming up with ideas beforehand, we go down to the people unprepared and are dependent on people to give us something. Because normally when you are in the planning process, you plan a lot of things yourselves, and then you go down and talk to people, and what people then say in meetings is really disturbing, because we are kind of going this way, and now you say it's a better idea to go this way. It's really disturbing. So how can we flip that around? How can we turn it around? And so this strategically unprepared is about making you dependent on comments, ideas, new directions, because you don't have anything. And that, I think, has been really fruitful learning from the project. Anyway, finished drawings, we started building, got some old benches from the municipality, took them apart, and they all helped. I mean, a lot of them helped building. It was frost, -10 degrees that winter. It was really difficult to put something in the ground. This is in the springtime. Just a small anecdote. This guy called Jan, he was called Stutter Jan. It's not my naming of him, but that's what they call. He has been to the music conservatory. Is that what it's called? Music school. Many years ago, has been drinking and homeless and whatever. And he didn't participate in anything when we were constructing and building. But then one day we were going to put the cobblestone down. He was like, "Oh, I've tried that before." And then he started helping, and he just built and built and built. And then after that, we were finished with that, he said, "Oh God, it was so nice. I haven't been working for 23 years. And so we discovered something. I discovered something that, because a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them participate in the building of this space. And why? I mean, the unemployment office couldn't get them to work or participate in many things. But I think that because they worked on their own turf, on their own term, in their own place, they could come in dirty clothes, they could come drunk, they could come late, they could not come for 2 days, and then they could come again. Everything worked. Whenever they were there, if they wanted to participate, they could participate. And then some of them did. So this idea that instead of, taking someone who is in that place, I mean, mentally, socially, and say, now try and work at this company, maybe in a kitchen at this folkhøjskole. It's too far a step. So maybe we can kind of invent steps, progression steps, that are smaller in terms of how to start working. Because all of these people, I discovered, have resources, are interested in contributing. Remember that for them, nobody asked them for anything in general. I mean, they wake up every day without anybody requiring anything from them. We can't imagine that. It's terrible. It's the worst thing you can do to a human being, I think. So of course they want to contribute, they want to be part of something. And we can use that. I have to push the button and then wait for 10 seconds. So I just have to remember what's coming. Okay, so this is kind of the finished work. And just 2 things I want to talk about is that, first of all, they are not one group. We thought they were one group, but no. They want to be able to sit in different groups, which we did with this design. And we also, this bench is a very, if you take 2 meters of it, it's a very normal bench in Denmark. You will see it everywhere. But what we did was we took that thing that you recognize and are safe with, and we twisted it a little bit, the architects. So they made it 45 meters long. So we took the concept from the old square where you were sitting at the same bench as everybody else, and we took that and prolonged that. But we also did that, I don't know if you can see it. You see that some of the boards are double-sized. So you just have this play in how it looks, that it's not all the same uniform width. So when someone else, then this group comes into this space, they would see, oh, I kind of recognize this bench, but there's something else going on here that is a bit different. So that was how to use, architecture or design to try and create an invitation. The second thing is that they had this box with tools, brooms, and gravels. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, river, rakes. Yeah, sorry. And they clean up the space every day. They clean up every cigarette butt and every capsule, beer capsule, and every from the cans people throw off. So it's probably the cleanest park in Denmark because every day that has been done. Yeah. Such. Oh, it's over there. Yeah. I took that picture out because I don't have so much time. Anyway, we also held an opening party, and 200 people came. There was a band. There was a popular film director who lived next by, Erik Clausen, who gave a speech and everything. So kind of trying to that other people could see themselves as part of this crowd of people, and that they can actually be in the same space as them was part of the endeavor. And the project has been extremely popular. I mean, it has been very, very well functioning. The police love it. The residents love it, and of course the people themselves love it. And I have showed so many groups around there from all over the world. And I have given many talks about it, as I do today, maybe 100 talks. And I'm just telling this that this was an art project. And this was funded mostly by art money. But it has been an example for many urban planners or whatever, pedagogues, social workers, architects, whatever, on how to do things. And it's actually part of the architectural policy of Copenhagen municipality has an image and a story about the user involvement process of the project. So, yeah. Anyway, you get the point. That with this project, these type of projects where you can do things that municipalities and others didn't necessarily want to do, and also with the injection room, that maybe you can't get a municipality worker to make an illegal injection room, but you can get an artist to do it, and then you can see how it works. So there's something about that I think is quite interesting. So now the time is really. Yeah, because we have until kind of now, Niels, of 10 minutes. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so this is a recent project. This is actually like like the first one, but this is an art project. I was invited by a curator to do a project in this church. You've seen it before. And we call the project Under Pressure. Now it was not drug addicts that were on this square anymore, because now we've got injection rooms in Copenhagen, so they don't have to sit outside. So now it's the Romas, especially, and other homeless people who are using the square for all their belongings and to sleep there in the night, because this church has a social profile, the Maria Church, and it has a social værested, shelter kind of thing where you can come and get coffee and talk with someone and wash your clothes and stuff like that, not sleep. So therefore it attracts a lot of socially marginalized people, and especially in these years it's the Romas. For the last 10, 15 years it's been Romas that has come here to collect bottles. So we can see them at, this is Angelica. So you have all their stuff, sleeping stuff and, belongings, whatever, your underwear, your nail cutters, whatever you need to sleep in the street. And you would see them around town like this, going and collect bottles. We interviewed, me and Johan, I did it with another artist called Johan August, and we saw that we interviewed lots of them in the beginning of the project, and we discovered that all of them are here to earn money to send home to their families, because they're so poor, and also Romas are very stigmatized in Romania, where 99% of them came from, that they can't get jobs there. It's very difficult for them. So they have given up their own lives. They have a house, they have a family, just don't have any income, any job, to go to Copenhagen, live on the street, be homeless, collect bottles, 1 kroner a piece, to collect money and send them home. That's their life. That's what they do. Then there was, but it creates tension and conflicts in the neighborhood that they are there. They are noisy. They look differently. They prepare chicken on the square. I don't know what. They piss in the corner. I mean, there's a urinal there. But anyway, when they have to make big poos, sometimes they go into the courtyard because there's no toilets around. So they go into the courtyard of the residence and take a shit. It's not very nice, but what can you do? So it creates lots of tension and conflict. So that has been going on for many years, and the church haven't resolved it, the police haven't resolved it, they can't. The social department of the municipality haven't resolved it, the politicians haven't resolved it, the EU haven't resolved it, with all of these issues of migrants. So some of the residents made a petition to close Maria Kirkeplads off, simply close it off, so that these people couldn't go there. So they got 200 people signing it, and a long story short, it went to the municipality, and the Lord Mayor, the top mayor of Copenhagen municipality, called the police director. We heard from the police, inside knowledge. And she called the police director and she said, shut it down. And they went there with this law we have in Denmark called the camp law, lejrloven, which was specifically targeted Roman people, because and it's called the camp law. I mean, it's not called the camp law, but that's what it's called. And you cannot say in a law that we don't want these kind of people. You cannot say that in a law. That's discrimination. We have another law for that. But so they have called it different things. There are different criteria that has to be fulfilled. Then the police can kick you away. And that's the specific situation that the Romas end up in. Anyway, so they were kicked away. So when we came, this was before the summer holiday, and when we came after the summer in September to start the project, the Romas weren't there. They only came in the opening hours to get coffee and tea. And they slept elsewhere in the city. And so we... What's the next picture? Oh. So we made this, we saw that there was a need for two things. One was reconciliation, conflict resolution. We needed to talk together, all of these parties, church, the residents, the Romas, police, whatever, the municipality had to talk together to try and resolve the problems. And we also thought that there was a need for activism because we needed to get the politicians, in, and they weren't. They didn't care a shit about the Romas, to say it bluntly. And you could actually, we had one mayor, Lord Mayor, called Frank, who said they are disgusting. I mean, that a mayor can say, a politician can say that if in a newspaper, just witness about that they are so low in the hierarchy that you can say things about them and get elected again. It's human beings. Anyway, we decided that we need to make some activism. So we called in the residents and the Romas especially, but also the other groups. And there were 15 Romas who came to a meeting. I mean, they were busy collecting cans for their children to survive, but they took out time to come to an activism meeting. But there were only one resident who came. So it's like, okay, what can we do? Anyway, what we found out in this workshop very shortly was that we need to show that they are humans, because people don't like them. I mean, me and Johan had prejudice about them. We thought we were really careful about our bag and stuff. We were sure we were going to get robbed and whatever. It didn't happen. Anyway, so we made 3 films. The church were part of the church communication department were part of it, because we have talked to the Romas who had never participated in anything with newspapers or social media, whatever. They never wanted. But because we are creative, we were on their side and created trust. They said, okay, we want to do this. So we made 3 different films.
Som mennesker, jeg ser, hvordan kan det være sådan noget,
Am dormit abugata pe penii. Acum ne mutar în față tot cu hotelul ăla, dar sunt niște oameni minunați. Dar sunt niște oameni minunați. Dumnezeu să le ajute. Pe cuvântul meu, așa tot.
For the non-Danish speakers, because they were thrown away from the square, they were sleeping in front of a hotel, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, the staff came out with a bucket of water and threw it over them. So that was, some others were sleeping in some other place where they got their stuff stolen. So when they came back to sleep again in a park, their sleeping bag and their clothes and whatever was gone, and stuff like that. So even though there was a resident who said, because they were not there at the square anymore, they said, now the problem is solved. It was like, we were like, you don't come to the activism meeting. And we also held a reconciliation meeting where there's also just one resident called Ole who came. So they didn't come to the reconciliation meeting. They didn't think that we should talk about our conflicts anymore because the problem was solved. But all the Romas came. So we, at that point, we thought, okay, the problem is solved for you who have your flats, nice apartments, it's quiet in the night now, but it's not solved for the other group. So we're going to invite them back. So we invited them back. We built like a thingy they could sleep under. We show where because this was the municipality's ground and this was the church ground. And then, anyway, we invited the press and then they came, and we slept here. I just want to go, and they cleaned after themselves. What we did was we went together with some lawyers who work with marginalized people in the street. And we looked through the law of this liar law, and we saw that there are different criteria that has to be fulfilled. So we wanted to use that and go around it. So it has to be a camp. It means that they have to sleep there every day. That's one criteria. So if you pack up your belongings every morning and put it somewhere else, it's not a camp. Okay, first criteria. Then it has to be in a public space. And the thing was that because the church ground is a public space, so you cannot sleep there. But because it was a private space, because the church owned the space, we could put up a sign saying that from 22 to 8 in the morning, it's not a public space. You are not allowed, the public is not allowed to be there. So it's not a public space anymore. Then we wrote underneath, everybody who's homeless or whatever can of course stay here. So we and then it has to be if it's unsafe, they could also be thrown away. So we said to them, smile to people, be happy and make a cheerful atmosphere, and clean up after yourself so it doesn't look like shit. So there was these 4 criteria that we taught them to do, which meant that the police could not throw them away. We also had another trick, which was the lawyer's idea, that we announced it to the police as a demonstration, freedom of speech. Therefore, if it's a demonstration that they were sleeping there every day, the police had to protect them. They had to protect people who demonstrate. Yeah. We also made a film. I mean, this thing, "We exist," became kind of a slogan for the protest. Anyway, so they came back, and then we had a third reconciliation meeting, and then the citizens came. There were 15 of them come, and the social mayor come, the mayor of social affairs came, police came, people from the church, whatever. And we had a debate, and we could talk about different needs and different understanding of what the public space should be like and stuff like that, which was really fruitful and nice, but it was also a lot of tension going on. But they met each other now. They have been sitting in the same space, that have been part of the same discussion. Because this was an art project, it ended, and we had to stop it. So what we did was we took down the tent, the thing, and the flag, whatever, and we walked with the people, the Romas, our nice friends now. We went to the social mayor. We gave her an image, and we gave her a report about all the needs that we collected. And then we made this, on Facebook, saying the art auction is over, because the residents was pissed on us because we invited them back. I mean, at least some of them were really pissed. But we just said that now we're going to go away, we're going to take away the tent, they can't sleep there anymore, so now it's, it's up to you. What are you going to do? To the politician, to the church. And I think very much that the church also learned a lot about how to deal with stuff, how to take more responsibility. The police saw their role maybe in a different way, and the politicians and the administration in the municipality also, I think, thought of it in a very different way. But this is the first time I made a project that was provocative. I never wanted to use that as a tool, but this was very provocative. And we became the ones, the prygelknap or whatever you say, the ones that you would point fingers at, they are the bad guys. But we took that on to try to create a different situation. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much. So, there's a lot of things to find on films and stuff and reports and things on my homepage, and I just want to end with that. In Swedish.
Tack så mycket, Kenneth.
Thank you.